And we'll let that go at that. I kind of want to try a different background for tonight. All right. You know, just for the sake of it, let me see what happens when a sound plays. Perfect, it fits. All right, on to the actual art of the evening. Let me share this out there. Not like there's going to be a whole lot of people that are going to be interested in this, but I'm trying to get in the habit of trying to post this stuff when I am going live. It's kind of trivial, honestly. Put something out there when, oh, just a second, I messed that up. Tonight. There we go. It's kind of trivial sharing when you're live, especially when you're someone that has a fairly small stream like myself. It seems weird. Not a fan of doing it, honestly, and that's why I don't typically post about this stuff. Because I think that people have better things to do than to be on the edge of their seat for when someone like me posts that they're going live. But I'm going to have to get into the habit of that for some of the bigger projects. You really have to do something for it. Okay. Anyway. All right, where were we with this project last? That's right. Upgrading the background art here. Let me pull up the image of Skek so that way I can make sure that I'm getting him correct. Here we go, Skek. Put that right here for me. Okay. That should be good enough. Make sure that's in a good position. Perfect. Skek is one of the more difficult characters to try and draw because I don't draw lizard characters too terribly well, and he is indeed lizard-like. Greetings there, Wolfie. Things are going decent. How about yourself? We had a problem on our stream yesterday. It kind of proved why Rumble is still struggling. The platform kick would not respond. Most unfortunate, because it caused the most of the discussion kind of lean towards Rumble stuff. It was not wasted opportunity, thankfully, but it was something where it did thwart the efforts quite a bit, and that was a little unfortunate. Going well enough, but pull my hair out learning Godot animation stuff. You know, I can understand that. Animation is a challenge to begin with. Trying to figure it out for a game platform, especially one like Godot, that's still in its infancy, technically. Definitely a challenge. Good luck to you, sir. That I do know that can get very frustrating. So hopefully you find some good resources. That's one good thing about Godot, is that there's a lot of people that study and develop it, and so trying to build upon it is relatively trying to build with it is relatively easy compared to some other platforms which are gate-kept by a bunch of paywalls. Either that or having to take full-out animation courses or coding courses to be able to learn it. That's what Unity used to be like. I remember people were like, oh yeah, you have to take an actual class for it. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. And actually, I do like Unity for the most part. Although I still hold out for Godot as being the one that's going to win in the long run. But it'll be a while till that happens. They'll have to require the whole game industry kind of collapses before that takes place. Got an alert tonight. Just wanted to say hello. Much appreciated, sir. Good luck to you on that project. This project began several months ago, and it's one of the most difficult projects I've had to work on, because it required me to do an amount of painting that I've never done before, amount of digital painting that I've never done before. I basically doubled the amount of drawings that I have ever done digitally, just for this project, at least finished works. I've done a lot of sketches on my tablet, but it was the first time that I had to sit down and do that many finished pieces. As a result, it made it very labor intensive, and I missed the deadline many times over. So this one is pretty nice that I only have to do it for 2 images, really. And I want to do a quick touch-up on one of the other ones. Ones that I didn't get a chance to finish to satisfaction, but that may be another week to do those ones. But I have to get at least these 2 panels out for them. This is going to be the first one. I'm just showing how characters found in a scrap pile with Jawas. That's not what happened in the story, but then again, there wasn't any background given for the character, so I kind of get free reign to come up with stuff. And so I'm kind of figuring out like what could happen, trying to figure out some different aspects of the character that hasn't yet been discovered yet in the roleplay. This character, when I first did this project, this character took me a long time to sketch. This guy has taken me a lot less time this go around, and I actually feel like he's going to be near final after this rough sketch is done, and I can be able to start adding to it. Granted, he's also further back and he's not the main subject, but he was a nightmare to have to draw initially, and so for this to go this much faster is very nice indeed. So I got a question for people that are artists out there. Do you have a passion project that you are just so very desperate to see come about, that you've been working on it for years and years and years at this point, and every time you start thinking about sharing it, you're like, no, just a little bit further. I gotta go a little bit further, because otherwise, if I fail this time around, no one's going to give me a second chance. There's a lot of people in that boat, myself included. There's many projects that you guys have no idea that I've been working on. And you won't until they're fully ready for the next step. And I think that's for the best. I think everyone needs a project like that to be able to bang their heads on and improve. But eventually you have to be able to find out how to learn how to do the production from start to finish. And that is very, very hard to try and do. It's a lot of hurdles you're going to have to overcome. Hurdles that I myself am still trying to learn. I wish I had started earlier in life doing commissions. But even so, I actually did start relatively early. I just didn't get as early as I would have liked to be able to help jumpstart my brain into thinking in a production mindset. But anyway, something you're so nervous to be able to publish. There's something else, though, that can happen. You become so excited and so sure of your project, you jump the gun. And you end up humiliating yourself. That's also a reality. I've known many artists who have done that, including myself. The last time I showed a group of people something that I made that wasn't on stream or whatnot, or on YouTube or Rumble or whatnot, it was in front of an audience, a very small audience, and the ridicule that came out, people that I thought were going to be encouraging, suddenly mocking. That hurt. And it caused me to bottle up. Now, some people might say, oh, that's terrible. I mean, how could they have done that to you? And yeah, that's right. How could they have done it to me? That wasn't very nice. That wasn't very civil. But at the same time, I got to learn it early on. Don't just put something out there because you can. Because you might humiliate yourself. Refine it. Work at it. Improve upon it. As a result of that humiliation, I have not published anything until basically now. I'm in the process of getting the first thing done. It's my first experiment since early 2000s. Late 2000s, early 2010s. It's been a long time since I've shared anything. Any sort of passion projects. But it's because of that humiliation in not wanting to repeat. See, things like that can come back and help you. Even though it hurts, even though it doesn't make sense why you had to go through it. Learning to hold your tongue when you have a story to tell. When you have a movie to create. It's kind of a necessary thing. Because the moment you put yourself out there, it's like setting yourself onto some railroad tracks. Once the wheels get on the rails, it's very hard to get off. Very hard to change tracks. There was a guy there's a guy that I knew that went into wedding photography right after college. And he was really good. He didn't want to do it at all. In fact, he hated wedding photography. But yet he proved himself to be good at it. And then before long, he wanted nothing more than to get out of it. But he had leaned in so much into it that we're trying to leave was very difficult because no one gave him credit for being creative outside of that. Greetings, Johnny Pearson. Drawing a storyboard, kind of. It's more like a glorified animatic. This is going to be for a D&D intro. This is for for a channel called Moonskull, and this right here is going to basically be a parallax photo. You're going to be slowly panning across this scene, and the different elements are going to be moving individually. But to get there, you have to start off with a basic design. And right now I'm in the process of refining that. And then it will be animated. Let me see here. We have... Here's an example of what this ends up looking like. let's see here. Is this the refined one? Yep. So see how it's kind of slightly moving? It is allows for some simple effects to be added in to just make it feel a little bit more lively. But basically it's a series of drawings that are, you know, just put to a little bit of sound effects and music. Anyway, channel's Moon Skull that this is going to be for. They stream almost every day, and I've been working with them for years at this point. I don't do all their intros, but I do a fair amount of them, and I'm learning. I'm getting better along the way, slowly but surely. I have done storyboards in the past, but I've mostly been leaning towards trying to get animations out, and this is like somewhere in between. The best intro I did for them was, in my personal opinion, was a 3D one, and that one was a lot of fun to make. But it still had several problems, because when you're doing very cheap scale intros, you can't go all out like you want to. If I could, I would be spending a full year trying to get this thing done, or to work with a team of people to be able to get it done. But I don't have that luxury. They kind of need it here and now, and so I don't get the opportunity to really refine it and make it a true masterpiece. I know a little D&D, not a lot. I play more Vampire the Masquerade. I am unfamiliar with that, as I am unfamiliar with D&D in many ways. I have yet to actually play any D&D, even though I've made about, I think it's like 8 intros, maybe more. Each one is a different style, and you know, actually my favorite one was a Game Boy intro. That one was a lot of fun to make. Sadly, I didn't get used nearly as much as I was kind of hoping. But that one was good fun to do. This one I have been learning slowly but surely to get better at drawing. I'm kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to art, and so I've never quite mastered 2D art and animation the way I want. But most of it, I think, is, again, because I'm rushed to try and figure this stuff out. Do you do any sort of art or animation yourself? And if so, what sort of platforms do you prefer? There's been a lot of projects I've gotten to work on over the years. And I gotta say, I've missed out on some pretty big opportunities. And a part of that is I have some restrictions to the type of art I will do. And somebody requested a project that I was like, nope, it goes too far. And it had to do with darkness. And I was like, no, okay, I'm not going to do that. But it could have done very well, and it would have probably been one of my biggest videos if I had gone through with it. Although, even though it would have been great for clout or whatnot, it would have made me feel so guilty. I would never have been able to continue doing art because that would probably put me on a path that I just wouldn't be able to recover from. I sculpt Halloween masks in resin figures. I have an Instagram and my friend's YouTube comic book channel. I cannot draw well. Hey, you know what? You found your art form in which you can lean into. Feel free to share that link if you want. I'm trying to get better at when artists have stuff that they're doing to be able to give them a chance to kind of showcase some of their work, because a lot of channels have given me a lot of opportunity, and I kind of forget to always ask that. I mean, granted, there's not very many people watching right now. I think right now it's basically 2 people, you, one other guy, and then the rest of them I think are bots. It's kind of hard to tell. You kind of have to wait and see based upon the likes, who's actually been watching. Well, likes or dislikes. Halloween masks. That's an area of crafting that takes a lot of effort. It's just a different type of effort. I did some creature costuming back when I was at college. It was just for the experience, and it actually turned out pretty well. I was trying to make my hand look almost like a dinosaur, and it actually turned out. And it had like claws on it and everything, the texturing. And I was like, wow, this is actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Oh, there's Bastion as well. I'm watching. Hello. Hello, Bastion. Hope you're doing well. Oh, by the way, folks, before I forget, I'm going to bring this up like 2 times during the stream tonight. But tomorrow, I'm going to be on another channel. I'm going to be on Dadman Walking 55. We're going to be talking Bigfoot. Oh, come on. It's not going to scale appropriately. Here we go. There we go. Going to be doing a Bigfoot stream. And it's going to be, honestly, quite interesting. So if you have any interest in that sort of stuff, we're going to be covering some facts and trying to prove the existence of the creature. And there might be a couple of stories that are very intriguing. Anyway, that's being shared on social media and also on the Discord, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. I'm just going to have it twice for this evening. You should definitely come to my friend's comic book stream. We talk to everyone. He has a lot of his viewers on 4chat. Oh, very nice. What is the name of the channel? Have to give it a look later on. It is interesting to me that the world of art has been under such attack for the last couple of years. I won't go into all the background. Most of you folks know it anyway. But it has been kind of a blitz on everything that is in every artistic field. It's been very hard for folks to be able to stay employed in art, animation, or whatnot. I got around it by doing coding and video editing, and that's how I get employed. But still, it is an industry that is still falling apart, and I'm not going to pretend like it's guaranteed. A lot of folks have already lost their positions, and I'm kind of bracing for the reality that my name may be called up one day, and like, nope, your industry is now going to be gone. That's why I'm mostly doing it as a hobby now. Ryan Gutierrez. Gutierrez, I think is how you say that. I'll have to take a look. Much appreciated. Let's see. Copy. And paste. There, saved for later. I really wanted to be able to become better at art and animation, because in my grand scheme of trying to figure out how to get into the industry, I thought, well, I got to try and make projects, big projects, and I had these big elaborate stories all figured out, and then I realized that no one would work with me because, everybody's got their own projects. So I thought, well, that means I have to kind of do all the roles. And so I learned audio production, I learned animation, I learned art. I went through every last role to try and figure out how to do a production from start to finish by myself. That was my genius plan to try and get around some of the challenges of production. And as you can probably tell, it didn't pan out, because here I am still kind of doing the same old stuff. But it's not completely gone, because now it has given me the opportunity to really grow in other areas. And so now it's kind of like it kind of feels like I'm in a creative rebirth, and there's some great opportunity for some projects now that used to never have that potential in the past. Freelance artists work 24/7. Yeah, you're not wrong. I used to work far more in the production process. I kind of surrendered that a couple of years ago. I don't work nearly as fast as I used to. I don't work nearly on as many projects as I used to. I probably need to. But I had this realization when I was in my early 30s. So right now I'm almost 26. I'm almost 36. And around the age of 30 is when I really had a reckoning. And a lot of my projects, which I had spent so long on, suddenly became a bit terrifying to me, because I realized life was being sapped up for projects that never panned out. And so I kind of took more of a carefree approach to it, and that's how I kind of kept my sanity for these projects. And I feel like it's also made my mental state for it just a lot better as a whole. Which secondary role do you enjoy the most? Animation, Greetings there, Jersey. If I was to list the creative process from start to finish of the roles that I like, I gotta say it would have to be, up top would be the writing process. Mostly because I have a lot of stories that I am very passionate about, although I'm not fast at that. So I would say that while it has the most potential problems as well. Second off, I would have to say it is actually sound effects. Sound effects is the thing that I didn't realize I would enjoy as much as I do. It is so much fun to try and piece that together. And I've actually done some audio dramas, some pretty long ones too. But both of these are something that one man can be able to do from start to finish, no problem, which is one of the reasons why I'm really trying to lean into this over the last couple of years. Some of that stuff potentially coming out in the future. Next, I would have to say it is art. Even though I really enjoy art, the competition is just so steep, it's hard to be able to compete. Next, it would be animation. You can kind of see a little bit of my journey in media production through this. To be able to get to an animation, you have to have a good understanding of art. To have a good understanding of art, you have to have, well, to have the a good understanding of animation. You have to have a good understanding of art. You have to have a good understanding of real life and how things look in the natural world. That takes a lot of time and effort to perfect. But the other part of animation is the element of story and sound effects. Because if you're going to be able to make this, you have to have both a story, sound effects, and then you can go to the art and then the animation. It's kind of a progression from start to finish. You start with writing, you create sound files for you to animate to, you perfect your art, and then you can finally have your animation. The part that I hate with a deep passion: rendering. Rendering is an absolute nightmare. I've been rendering the same animation for the last 10 months, and it keeps crashing on me. It keeps having problems. I only just started getting success. I've gotten more rendered in this last month than in the previous 9 months. Rendering is so frustrating. But anyway, that's what it's like for me. $32. Hey, you got some. You're kind of at that. What I kind of like to think of as the cutoff point for the next stage of your professional development. You're kind of in that area where a lot of people finally are like breaking free of the last bit of their student mindset, and now you're officially a full-fledged professional, even if you are still constantly learning, kind of like myself. It was kind of interesting. You mentioned about the masks earlier. We actually had somebody who used to be a regular watcher early on, and she did a whole lot of masks, and they were fairly simple masks, but she had a lot of fun with it. And then she did a whole lot of cosplay as well, and had some really elaborate masks that she would do for that. It is an area that has a surprisingly high number of people that really engage it. By the way, folks, we are across 3 platforms on the Rumble, YouTube, and Twitch side. If you have any interest in the stuff that happens around here, either curiosity for the animations in the future, enjoyment of art, or the ramblings that I tend to do, consider liking or disliking the stream. I will not get upset if you dislike it, because that means that you are probably a human being. And that is the most important thing. We don't like the AI around here. Right now, there's a lot of AI going around. And thankfully, companies are finally cracking down on them. But for a long time, that was a big part of the audience, and it still is at times. So if you still like or dislike, that helps us to know if you're flesh and blood. Now, in the world of art and animation, one of the challenges of trying to really make your project stand out is how to get a style. Now, styles are, golly, it is very difficult to try and get a good style. And I won't pretend like somehow I have figured it out or whatnot. I have definitely not. I'm struggling to get my art style. But I have noticed over the last couple of years an art style finally starting to form. But one of the things I've noticed with the style is that if you don't narrow it down, it starts to go all over the place and it makes your project look so very unrefined. It would be better if it was a stick figure than if it was a character that you cannot recreate over and over again. Now that's something for me to say, because this intro that I've been doing, I failed that. But I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to refine it, trying to get better at it, because this to me is about learning more than about trying to actually do the commission. Which I'm grateful that Moonskull is understanding of that, because a lot of other people would have probably been shown the door on projects like this. They're like, oh, wow, you can't finalize it. And granted, maybe it's because part of it is that it's a fairly small channel, so I don't have to worry about trying to meet a deadline because people's jobs are on the line. But at the same time, it gives me the chance to really lean into it and perfect it, and people can see the progression over time. The first intro, in my opinion, was one of my best. But I had the most time to actually put into it. I was actually full-time doing that stuff for quite a while. This is now part-time, and so I'll never quite get to that level of production again. Not for a long time. But it has been a great experience overall. I like 3D animation and wanted to do some myself, but I couldn't draw, and in the process of learning 2D art, I fell in love with it. Indeed, indeed. You know, it doesn't really matter what type of art you're doing. It just matters that you get a chance to experiment and thrive in it. My grandfather is an example of that. My grandfather wanted very badly to do art. He was not an artist, and it pained him that he couldn't do art. He couldn't sing, he couldn't do art, and he would bemoan that fact every time we met him. But here's the thing. My grandfather was very, very, very good with woodworking. We looked at him one day and it's like, Grandfather, you do realize you're doing art too. You're doing it with wood. Sure, you're not drawing it, but the amount of detail you can put into your carvings, that's technically art. And but he could never quite see it in that same way. So he's always looking down on his own projects, not realizing that he was actually an artist the whole time. But yeah, his artwork is now everywhere in extended families' homes and whatnot. Woodworking is like 3D sculpting in Blender now. Yep, it is indeed. Jersey, do you have any portfolio that you've been building? This is also just a reminder that if you are in the world of art, animation, and whatnot, always have a portfolio, because you never know when you actually will want to use it. I got a portfolio really early on in my career, and I was able to share it and got some a pretty good start to my media career. My resume was thrown in the garbage, but my demo reel landed me my first job. Got me my first commissions as well. Just do it for stress relief. Ah, no worries. And hide it in a folder. I got folders galore and containers of artwork. I do mean containers and containers of it. You don't have to always share it. Sometimes it's just for a very small audience. But here's the one thing. Always try and make sure that it's something that you can share. Because the world is, well, everybody gets a chance to benefit the people around them with what they create. And sometimes you don't realize how much people enjoy it until you find out one day that they're like, you know, we really wish that you had shared that stuff earlier. And they're like, oh, darn it. But anyway, by the way, that's what I experienced a while back. Somebody said, why don't you share more stuff? And I was like, well, because I had a very bad experience with it. And so I bottled up. You don't share everything, but you definitely should share something. It gives you a chance to grow. Only reason why I'm doing this right now is because someone pushed me towards doing this stuff. Now here I am, years later, still doing it. Art really does help to give people hope. That's something I would always suggest. I don't know what everyone's artwork is, but I do want to mention that artwork, it lends itself to people that grieve. Let's just be completely honest about this. People that are grieving many times become the best artists. And I think that is for a reason. I think that it's part of the healing process. But as a result, a lot of people's artwork can also become very dark. Always be careful that you use your artwork to try and shine light, because the world's full of darkness. And what people desperately want is something beautiful and hopeful. Something that inspires. And there's a lot of artists out there that don't do that stuff, and they have that potential. There's one person that I know did an entire comic book about pain and suffering. They had great talent, but that's all they did was stuff about pain and suffering. And finally, I was like, you're missing out. You're missing out on the great opportunity to really engage people and help other people that were in your sort of position. They didn't quite understand. Real shame, honestly. Only trying to do wholesome stuff. Ah, excellent. I started mentioning it a little bit earlier, but there was a commission that I turned down. I've not turned down a whole lot of commissions. There's only 2 times that I have done that. One was for a scam company that was intentionally hurting people in order to make a fast buck. I didn't know what they were until after I'd done the first wave of material. And then I realized, and I didn't want to do it again. Lost a pretty big commission as a result. But I would not have been able to carry on if I had gone through with it. Another one that I turned down was one where it was all about suffering and pain and trying to instill hopelessness. It was a piece of music that was going to be designed to discourage people. And it was going to pay pretty well. And it's like, nope, can't do that either. Missed out, you could say, but at the same time, your soul will be paying the price, even if you don't feel it for a while, and eventually comes back to haunt you. Some projects that I've worked on still haunt me. It's like, why did I go through with that? But having something wholesome, or like you said, silly, it helps to lift the spirits. Now, you don't want to do only that sort of stuff. You want to be sober-minded. Actually, a lot of my stuff that I make is sober-minded, meaning that it's not depressing, but it's also not going to veer away from some of these struggles that happen in life. But it tries to take a better approach to it. Hopefully I get to share that with you all very soon, of which one of those projects is nearing its end. Right now I have people editing it, trying to review it, and it's going to be a short little piece, but then the longer project will come out later on. The other project I've been tinkering on for the last year and a half, intentionally, and that one has some real potential. But part of the problem is that the project became super big. But it's not dark, but it also doesn't stray away from some really tough challenges. I want to be sober-minded, a balance of both light and also acknowledging that there is darkness, and trying to show how light can still shine despite that. You don't realize until later on when you meet somebody who has been scarred by the darkness, and then you see the stuff they surround themselves with, stuff that they feed their mind, and you get worried for them. There's one guy where I did get worried for him. Later on, I found out he came very close to leaving this earth. He had spent too much time looking into the darkness pretty soon it was like he was being welcomed by it. His family found out, and he recovered. If he didn't have his family nearby, I dread to think what would have happened. But he was somebody who needed hope, somebody who needed a light in the darkness. And the media that he turned to was just solely darkness. Some people just find relief in dark stuff. Everybody is different. Yes, and also no. That friend of mine that got very close to terrible things, that was something where he had, where it's almost like he had spent so much time in the darkness, it was almost like a hand from the darkness was coming out to grab him. I didn't think that was possible until I heard about it afterwards, and he told me what he had been through. But you can understand my shock. When he came up and told that story to me, I was like, all the warning signs were there. And I've seen some people since then that are in that position. And that's where it's like there always needs to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Because if the tunnel's just darkness, ooh, that gets depressing fast. Have you ever been in a cave? I mean, like, in a real cave. Not like at the mouth of a cave. You've traveled thousands of feet into it. I got to go to such a cave in the Appalachian Mountains. I don't remember the name of it. I could very easily find it, though. We traveled into the cave for about a mile or something like that. Maybe it was a little bit short of that. But we got in there. This was before cell phones were really prevalent everywhere. And we walked in, and the tour guide said, okay, we're going to douse the lights. I want you just to sit and take in the darkness. I've never felt so much darkness. It was oppressive. And you could feel everyone becoming tense and nervous. Your eyes are darting around for anything, and you can't see it. That's what I feel like it is for people that spend too much time on dark material. It's like they're walking further and further into a cave. The light is behind them, but they're so set on their journey that they're not realizing that really clarity and a brighter future are right behind them. And eventually, when the lights get doused and the fear starts to come in, then you realize you can't even see where the entrance is. You're stuck. You're stranded. And what you wouldn't give for a little flicker of light. Well, eventually the tour guide pulled out a little tiny light and held it up. And what it did to the area was very surprising. It illuminated it. And everyone's focus became on that light. When the lights of the cavern were turned back on, because the whole area did have electric lights, floodlights throughout it. When they turned them all back on, you came to really cherish that light. And on the way out, you just were looking for natural sunlight, a light at the end of the tunnel. Dark content, it's kind of like leading people down that tunnel. And then the moment that they need help the most, it's like somebody just flicks off the lights. And you don't realize the turmoil that suddenly appears in them. Again, I would not have known just how striking this can happen if I didn't know people that this had happened to. And it's always a reminder when you make stuff to have that hope factor. Everything I do is required for me to really pull it off, to actually do a project. I have to be allowed to have hope in it. The commission that I turned down that was about kind of hopelessness, I couldn't do because of that problem. And I'm very glad that I didn't go through with it, because I would have had to struggle with that a whole lot. I've told this story before, and so for those that have been around the channel for a while, you'll know that where I'm going with the story. But there was a guy that I was at an art class with. It was an art camp. Sorry, my bad. An art camp. And he was having a very tough go. And he was leaning into kind of... he was the type of guy that wanted to laugh and joke about everything. You probably know the type. Laugh and joke about everything, but is secretly struggling with stuff. And he's trying to laugh it all off, and then he would like lash out at people, and then he would joke about stuff more and lash out at people. Well, we were all supposed to do a final project, and I did something that I'm passionate about, which is mountainous terrain, and I was trying to paint some mountains. This guy decided instead to draw a heart. I was like, this guy of all people drawing a heart? You could say I spoke too soon. No. I looked over again after a few minutes. It wasn't just a heart. It was a heart that now had swords sticking out of it. It now was bleeding. It now had like parts being torn off of it. Everything that he could do to this heart, you could say, was destruction. And we got to the point of where we all were presenting, and I looked at it. It's like, it's really kind of dark and kind of sinister. He's like, yeah, I just want to give people a dose of reality. Well, suddenly, after we'd had a small conversation, he started to panic. He looked up at it in from. It's like every dark and cruel thought he had suddenly melted away, and he was afraid that that's how he would be remembered. And he was climbing to try and get to the artwork, which was hung just out of reach. So he was trying to get a chair so he could go up and get it, and people were pulling him down, saying, no, it's wonderful, you should be glad about it. He's like, no, it's terrible, it's dark. And he was panicking because suddenly the darkness inside of him was breaking, and he didn't want to be remembered for that. Sadly enough, most people now remember him for that. Shame on the teachers for not allowing him to go through with kind of his hero arc, you could say, of starting to come back around. But it is important to remember that darkness passes. We have to be ready to help people when they are trying to escape and find the light again. You don't know somebody's story. Not until later on when they come out and they finally tell you. Even so, you're probably never going to truly understand. Now, I've had the blessing of getting told by multiple folks over the years what was actually going on in their life. One of those people I completely forgot about until I encountered them again. And she came up and mentioned that we had met, actually, a couple of years prior. And I suddenly remembered, oh yeah, you were from this class. And that person had remembered something that I got to say to them. It wasn't until much later that actually she came up to thank me and also to apologize for all the terrible things that she had been thinking about me ever since then, because she was very bitter and angry at the world. And all I did was ask her, like, is it better for you to keep getting upset with that when people are trying to help you? And that was a point where, just by asking if why she had to be so angry all the time, that changed it. And I don't know what went on in her life. All I know is that years later, suddenly it was a complete 180. And things were going much better. That's one of the reasons why I started taking an interest in wanting to always have a hope factor. Because I have met so many people that are in the desperation of trying to find hope in the darkness. People are drawn to universes and stories set in dark, brutal worlds. Whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, or horror, because the characters have it far worse than we do. And it's an awesome story runner. The stakes make the stories feel more real and relatable, especially when danger is always lurking. Like Star Wars, haha, slavery, dictatorship, racism, and tons of war. It's a harsh world also. Yes, it can be. But here's the here's what I'm referring to when I mean, like, endless, that there is pure darkness. Now, when I was growing up, I was a fairly sheltered kid. My parents decided that they wanted to make sure that I was as disconnected from the culture as possible. And honestly, I do thank them for that. I think I got an experience that I never would have gotten if they had let me become super familiar with the culture. But one of the things that it did is it shell-shocked me when I suddenly got out of the house and I went to college. Because suddenly I was surrounded by people that didn't share a lot of the same worldviews as I did. And it was a hard adjustment. One of those things was I got introduced to real dark media. And there's a lot of interesting things about true dark media. One of the commonalities with it is that it's designed to cause panic. It's designed to cause fear. If you've ever met somebody who is come from the front lines of a battle, the last thing you want to do is show them a war movie. That's somebody who's living with real trauma. And if they've just seen their friend get blown up, the last thing you want to do is show them a movie that has war in it. That's the same sort of thing of somebody who's dealing with something dark and depressing. And suddenly they're introduced to something that feeds off of it. And suddenly they can snap. Like my friend, who almost left us because of that. That's one of the reasons why I take such a hard line on it. I realize that not everyone's going to see it in the same way as me, and honestly, I think that's probably for the best. And I've had a whole lot of people that disagree with me on that. I used to be on regular YouTube streams, and there were a lot of people that disagreed with me on that point. Mostly because they thought I was trying to take away their fun, because it was like, oh, but we like this dark media. It's like, I'm not questioning whether or not you're enjoying it. I'm saying that it's dangerous to a lot of people. One of the worst examples I saw when I was growing up when versus what I was growing up versus what I saw at college was the content that was designed to try and make you think that there was nothing good in the world, that everything was evil. There are a lot of good people in this world. And if you start to think that there is nobody who's good, well, you'll start to become cynical. And you start to think that everyone's out to get you. I've had people think I was out to get them. And it took them a long time before they realized, no, this guy is actually genuine. That's one of the reasons why I try and be as personal as possible. I'm not here for hype. I'm not here to try and deceive people. I'm here to talk. I'm here to be a light in a dark world. As such, that means I really do care. And when I've seen these people get hurt by the stuff that other people were consuming and like pushing them towards, and like, can't stand by. It still all depends on the person. Some media, even dark ones, if consumed in a large amount, it can be a good way to desensitize yourself and prepare for certain careers just to keep yourself sane when the right time comes. I would have to kind of know what an example of that would be. Because I've seen how that goes south really, 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 really fast. To the point of where people start to almost become so desensitized to life, which, by the way, that's an important thing to actually remember. Life is going to be painful, and we can't, and if we become desensitized to it, then we might start to become cruel as a result. And I've known a lot of people that fall into that category. People that are, and in fact, that's kind of the story arc of a lot of villains, you could say. People that become so hurt that they decide that they want to lash out the world. And granted, it's part of it is a challenge of trying to convey experiences that I've had in a very short amount of time. I can't impart years of life stories within just one stream. That's why I kind of pepper stuff here and there, and slowly but surely trying to convey all the stories that I can. There's some stories you'll never hear because they become they're ones that are either still happening or ones where it's too sensitive for folks. Military, medical, police, and stuff. See, I can understand some of that. That's not really what I'm referring to when I say dark media. Dark media that the ones that have no hope are the ones where it's like designing to make you think the way that a supervillain does, or trying to make you think in the way of someone who is possessed. There's a lot of very dark stuff out there. One of the biggest things that I've noticed is the ones that try and lean into things that are like depraved, destructive to the sense, destructive of innocence. By the way, I've been thinking about that a lot. One of the biggest things I have a problem with that is the destruction of innocence. Let me expand upon this a little bit. There was a guy that we got to learn about in my psychology class. Now, I did take a psychology class, and honestly, it was one of the most incredible classes I took, because the professor held up the book and said, "This is a bunch of baloney. You can't trust it." And he went on to a whole different approach to psychology that I think most people have never gotten to hear, and one that made a whole lot of sense. It was incredible what he went into, but he went through it by first tearing it down. One of the things we got to learn about was a guy who went and who wanted his daughter to grow up. He was like, "Oh, she's just a wuss." And he took to purchasing rabbits and letting her cuddle them, and then doing terrible things to the rabbits afterwards. It shell-shocked the little child. She would scream and she would cry, and he would delight in it, starting to laugh about it. The police were finally called, and the guy was arrested. It was a level of depravity that was in the desire to want to cause pain. He was trying to toughen her up for the real world, and in doing so, he became the villain. He traumatized her horribly. Imagine dark media kind of being a similar sort of thing. For a lot of people, they're in a level of pain and grief. And if you see something that is designed to make you ache or be afraid, that's the last thing you want to have someone see. Especially youth. And that's where a lot of these things seem to be targeted, is towards children or young adults. And that's what really irks me. Because you're right, military, medical folks, police, they need to be wary about what they can encounter. It's like the preschooler. Was that the right? First grader. Or something that I was sitting next to on a plane flight. And the child was being forced by their parent to watch heads getting cut off in a spy movie. It was grotesque. And the child didn't want to watch it. All the child wanted to do was watch a cartoon. The destruction of innocence. We're all in different stages of that journey. And there's some folks, when they're in their early teens, or even their mid-teens or late teens, like my friend, who are dealing with a level of depression and grief that you don't know until much, much later. And then you find out, dang, this person was watching things where somebody loses their soul and is now having to walk around like a ghost, having to destroy other people in order to have a chance of getting restored. Their family is gone. Their whole life is dead. And then you see that it becomes that person's favorite media. It's like, you already are depressed, and your favorite media is something about somebody who loses hope, who has become a shell, and who is told to do bad things in order to try and recover, and doesn't work. Now imagine that becoming that person's favorite medium, and you know what happened to my friend. Shock therapy is a way to grow up faster. I don't deny that. But what are they being grown up into? That's the real question. See, we've become so desensitized in our culture. For us, most of us have seen horrible, horrible things before we're even a teenager. A lot of people, you could say, probably get their psychological problems from that sort of stuff. But it's really hard to try and prove right now because there's an entire industry that thrives off of it. There are some places, though, where it starts to shine through, like with the guy that I knew. There's other types of media out there that is going to eventually come about where we start to realize what it does. Hope at the end of the tunnel. Just like with that cave. If you get shown only darkness without a hope at the end of the tunnel, what's the point of that media? What's the point of that project? We all have a chance to contribute to somebody's restoration or somebody's destruction. There's been nations in the past that have been absolutely devastated because they leaned so deep into suffering and torment. There's been cultures that went on horrible, did horrible and destructive acts. And then you start looking at what they consumed, and then you realized, dang, it's like they were being prepared for that. That's what concerns me about dark media, is that I feel like it's like the devil is intentionally trying to get us desensitized to it. And then when we see it, then we're less likely to want to react negatively. And I've definitely seen that with a lot of things in our culture, to the point of where it has convinced me of that. And then, of course, seeing it in the lives of others. By the way, that actually started happening to me. Somebody shell-shocked me when I was younger, and I saw what it did to me, and it was a fairly benign thing. I can only imagine what other people have experienced in their youth. Do they grow up? Yeah. But at what cost? I know not everyone's going to agree with me on that. In fact, I dare say most people in our culture probably will disagree. But if nothing else, I want people to think about it, to be able to realize that there is actually another side of the issue, one that you don't hear very often, and one that I think needs to be at least acknowledged. There's another friend of mine, well, not a friend, he was somebody that lived at the dorm that I was at, and he was never around. He used to be around, and then one day he just stopped showing up to stuff. And we didn't really know what was going on with him. He kind of disappeared. He started watching all sorts of really strange media. And it even made the people that were like more comfortable with that sort of stuff, even made them start to churn a little bit. Like, something's off with this guy. We found out later on that something terrible was happening. He just didn't tell us. He ended up leaving the school, and it took him, I think it was 2 years to recover. Horrible things that he was going through. Things that very well could have ruined him forever. Kind of should ruined him forever. Thankfully, he was saved. But he was another one that's like, it was the telltale sign. The media was the indicator. My roommate was obsessed with a game. I won't mention what it was, but let's just put it this way: it was a game about death and suffering. He was fascinated with this game. I went through several roommates when I was at school. I kind of got put with people that were having problems. And it's interesting because I got to see multiple people dealing with multiple different issues. Well, this roommate disappeared one day. He didn't even finish out the semester. I found out later on that he was having mental breakdowns. The media he was consuming was indicating something was wrong. There's another guy, he was another guy who was struggling with media that had no hope. Now, he had other issues that were going on too, but it was the thing that kind of was an indicator that he felt like there was nothing left for him. And it was causing horrible, horrible side effects. And none of us knew. Although, in retrospect, it should have been very obvious. Now, that's why I realized that this is actually even an issue. How do I impart that life experience to others other than just to kind of tell people their story? Which I think that's one of the reasons why I've been put on this earth, is I was given a whole lot of experiences. Way more experiences than the average guy in my early career. Some very difficult ones too. I think it was all for the purpose of being able to understand what people were going through, because then it gave me the opportunity to kind of capture that in story. And some of the stories I have to tell is going to explore some of this, including one that has to do with a very dark subject, but it's designed to try and show light at the end of the tunnel. And the character is somebody who is trying to stand up in the light when everyone else wants to drag him down into darkness. That story, I'm struggling to try and figure out how to tell it, because I don't want it to become depressing. I want people to understand it. But right now the story is a little bit on the depressing side. It's a little bit on the fearful side. I need it to be different before I feel comfortable sharing that story with you all. One of the stories that is not nearly as troubling is one that I've been writing for the last year. And that is a story about Milo. That story I very much like. It has so much potential, and I really think that it has some has the ability to become a saga. Took a long time, and by the way, it took some very frustrating, painful moments of life to actually be able to come up with a story. I had to live some of Milo's life, you could say, before I had the ability to write about it. Same way, I think that people that go through tough spots in life, they have the ability to rise up above it. But it becomes a lot harder when all they see is failure. I recently watched Batman. Now that is a Christopher Nolan Batman. It is so good. Like, every time I see it, I'm just floored by how well designed that story is. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there, especially the comic book fans or the animated series fans, who are like, no, that's not Batman, and they're very hardcore on that. I understand. There's a lot of people out there that don't like that version of Batman. But you can't deny that there is a level of wisdom and genius behind those films. One of the things, though, that Alfred mentions about that's so well thought out. Alfred turns to Batman and says, "You only see one end to your journey," which he's referring to that Bruce Wayne wants to die. You only see one end. Alfred cared because he wanted to see Bruce Wayne recover and to have a future. He was so focused on trying to embody his pain that he forgot to look for hope for himself. And it wasn't until the very end that you think that Alfred's words have been ignored. And then you see that Bruce Wayne has taken the advice of his butler, and he's actually going to make a difference in a different way than what he had done as Batman. And that he was going to actually have a chance to finally recover. Hope is powerful. And if you don't have hope, it may seem so foreign and so ridiculous. Kind of like one of my friends, he was like, the world's dark, the world's terrible. And I was like, there's also good things. And he's like, there is nothing. Show me one thing. I was like, I went down a quick list and he's like, I don't see that. He very quickly just ended that conversation. And he had also a mental breakdown. Kind of weird. I got a lot of people around me that were in that category, including one guy that I got touched with, had a very strong case of Asperger's. That was an interesting one. The first month was painful beyond belief to be around him. But you know what? That pain eventually became tolerable. And I found that I actually had sympathy for him at the end. I didn't have animosity towards him. It took a long time to get past that. But I got to experience people like that. I got to experience that people are having mental breakdowns. The whole gamut. It was great. Is this Clip Paint Studio? It is indeed. Right now, you can't really see it because I cropped the edges of it. But yeah, you can see the tools right here over on the side. I very much like this program. It is so good. I used to use Photoshop. Man, that by comparison, this is night and day. This is a great piece of software. And it is the Clip Paint Studio EX, which, by the way, I think that is well worth the money. Great tool. By the way, I also apologize, folks. I ramble during these streams. I got used to it when I was early on in streaming, and I'd just be going on for hours and hours on projects like this. I'd just go on to all sorts of deep subjects. I'm using, too, I got it for free when I bought a Wacom tablet to do 3D sculpting. Oh, lucky. One of the great things about Clip Paint is that it's fairly affordable. And so when they had an upgrade, they had a sale. And so I got the upgrade for a very cheap price compared to Adobe Photoshop. Oh my goodness, that thing is so expensive. So glad I haven't had to pay for Adobe for 2 years. I have saved a ton of money. Sadly, I'm going to have to get it again by the end of this year. I'm not looking forward to that. But there's some programs that just don't have a parallel right now, and one of those is InDesign. Gotta get InDesign. There are other programs out there, they're just not anywhere close to being usable. Clip Paint was a program that I got early on in my YouTube career. I did a series of speed paints early on, and they were very poorly done. And I didn't realize how labor-intensive it was going to be to do speed painting. And so I got 3 projects done. They were terrible, and I was just trying to get, just get started. I just want to learn the process, so I just started doing artwork. And it was terrible, and no one watched it, and it was meaningless. And I thought, well, I'm just going to quit. It wasn't until 3 years ago that somebody basically forced me to get into streaming. Well, I won't say forced, they tricked me into streaming. And then it was off to the races, and things have gone. We've had some great years, we had some mediocre years, but it has been quite the experience. But I first got this software with the intention of doing speed painting for YouTube. I found out that apparently Wacom is like falling apart. Like I have one that is, I've been using the same Wacom ever since 2013. This has been the best investment I've ever done. It keeps going, and I don't really see a need to upgrade it if upgrading it means that I'll have to deal with all sorts of headaches. So I'm not good enough to try and do an upgrade, although I do wish that the screen was bigger. I am working with a screen that's fairly small, but I should kind of lift it up here. Yeah, this big. So it's bigger than some other ones, but compared to like a legit size one, the UI makes it so very hard to be able to utilize this thing. Just because you need to be almost 30% bigger to really get good lines. Otherwise, you have to keep zooming in. And when you zoom in, you lose perspective of what the whole thing looks like. Then you come out and you're like, oh, darn it, I got the perspective wrong. And you wouldn't have that problem if you could see it all in front of you clearly. Also have Coral Aftershot and Coral Painter Essential. Oh, yeah, I remember those software. I actually got started on those before I could afford Photoshop. That was the very first software I got, like the early iteration of that. That was back in 2006, 2007, something like that. It was like version 1 or whatever it was back then. Never activated them, but have you heard or used Coral? Yes, that was yeah. But Coral Painter, they had like early potential, and I did some of my first pieces of artwork were done on that program. It was great. I enjoyed it. Man, you have to keep developing stuff, folks. If you don't develop it, it's going to fall behind. It's kind of like your art skill. If you don't practice your art skill, you start to lose it. If you don't keep up with the big dogs in the programming world, you start to taper off too. An example of that is one of my favorite software, which is no longer my favorite software, but I still hold out that one day they will get their feet under them. That's Lightwave 3D. Poor Lightwave. Lightwave was a great software for its time. In fact, it was a revolutionary piece of software. Lightwave 3D. So the first 3D software that I purchased, I got it on a student license, and it was actually being used for full-scale media production. All right. Lightwave 3D. Okay, loading. Here we go. Come on. What's going on here? There we go. Look at that great quality animation. Wow, it's amazing. This is what Lightwave advertises. Oh, look, now it's much better rendering. See? Oh, now they got even more cool things, and even that. By the way, that's actually some pretty impressive stuff. Lightwave has been struggling to try and get their footing under them. I feel very sorry for them because they have a software that has been so great in the past because they did one thing that no other program was doing. They split their modeler and their scene editor. And because of that, it allowed for bigger projects to be done. And no other software has done that. And I do miss Lightwave. But Blender's better. And Blender did what they couldn't, and it adapted to the future. Lightwave's always playing catch up, but they used to be cutting edge. And that's the part that's really, really a shame. Anyway, that's the software that I hope makes a comeback one day, because I'm nostalgic for it. And I do think that they have great potential with some of their techniques. But like Coral Paint, they got left behind. They lost out to the big dogs that were buying up competition and paying for massive improvements. And I'm surprised Lightwave even is still active. I thought for certain that they would have been out of business by now. But they keep pressing forward. And that's great. And I hope maybe one day they'll find their footing again. Oh well. Have a simple Wacom. Intuos M. Ah. I think I'm familiar with that one, but let me just double check. Oh, yeah, that's actually one of the first ones I had. No, correction, I had one that was terrible. I had like I had a Wacom Bamboo. That was my first one. The very first iteration of a Bamboo. Horrible. Terrible. It was so painful to use that tool. A screen is where it's at. It speeds up the production so fast. But there are actually painters out there that prefer having no screen. They have the ability for their brain to use their pen like a mouse. I wish I had that ability. It'd make it a lot cheaper for me, and things could probably go pretty well for it. But no, I don't have that ability. One day, though, it'd be great if they did projection Wacoms. I saw the technology a while back, and I have always wanted to see something like that. Probably not going to see it, though, sadly. I need myself some more water. I will be right back. By the way, folks, before we continue on here, I just want to mention that tomorrow we're going to be over with Dadman Walking 55. I've posted this on social media. I posted this in the Discord. This is happening tomorrow, and been on his channel a couple of times before. This time around, we're going to be talking Bigfoot. And if you have any doubt on whether the creature is real or not, we're going to prove how it is. Hopefully, people find it informative, and educational. But anyway, that's happening tomorrow at, what is it? I think it's, let me double check the time, because I don't want to misquote this. It's, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, anyway, that is happening tomorrow. This is a very... there's been a reason why I've been asked to talk on this one. Remember how I said earlier that I've been given a lot of experiences, including this. You'll hear the story tomorrow. Do you live in Bigfoot area? Yes, we do. It's been a lot of sightings, and they've been growing in frequency. In fact, there is a town that was wiped off the face of the map. A small town. It was a little lumber village down in the Kenai Peninsula. A lumber camp was set up, and they apparently caught an infant Sasquatch, and the adults proceeded to destroy the camp. It freaked the men out so much that they fled the area, and they never returned. That is Alaska lore. And that happened not far from here, you could say. There's been stories also of areas that are much closer to where I am. There's stories up around towards Mount McKinley. Some stories that are very, very compelling. Some stories people will probably doubt, but we're not going to go over those ones. We're going to go over the ones that are pretty convincing. And I've found it kind of interesting that we have a culture up here in Alaska that's becoming more familiar with this. There is a guy that sometimes comes over to visit the stream. He is an Alaskan native. He is a chieftain, very good credentials, and he's seen some things that are very strange, that to someone who understands that there are mysteries in this world doesn't surprise us, but to a lot of people it would cause them to freak out. And I will not be telling his story, that's for him to tell, but it is interesting to me just how incredible Alaska is for some of these stories, and how many of them seem to be happening on a regular basis. There, that's a much better height. I was too zoomed in, I couldn't see how short he looked. I don't know if I should wish for Bigfoot to be real or not. In a way, it would make the world just slightly more exciting. We're going to be covering that tomorrow. It's it is a very real concern. This is not a friendly creature. I will say that much. You know, gorillas are a recent discovery. Yeah. Up until the 1900s, they were thought to be mythology. A story about wild hairy men in the middle of the forest. Oh, they're just savages. In fact, the people of Africa thought so too. Wasn't until some scientists went in and some explorers went in and found one, and they're like, "Oh, dang, this thing's real." But it wasn't the way that the mythology said. It was something that was very real, but it was very docile compared to what people thought, and it changed their perspective on it. We see a gorilla and like, "Oh, look, there's a gorilla." We don't think of it as run for the hills, it's a gorilla. Bigfoot, on the other hand, I can't say the same thing. Have you ever seen the Bigfoot vlogs on YouTube, the Aeon ones? They are hilarious. They are, but here's the thing, and we're going to actually cover this part tomorrow. I really don't like them, because what it does is it creates it into a kind of a mockery. It's going to become near impossible to convince people when evidence finally does come out. You're going to have to shoot one at this point. You can't capture it with a camera because a lot of people will just immediately deny it. They'll say, "No, it's fake." It's going to be very, very hard to prove its existence. And AI is made it harder. So yeah, they're entertaining, but it's done so much damage to the Bigfoot hunters who are like legitimately trying to find it. I think I can start doing the final sketch for this now. I do realize they're entertaining, as are a lot of other things in this world, but it can also desensitize us a bit. And I have noticed a lot of people becoming desensitized to some things that are very real, and just kind of writing them off. One of those things is some tragedies that took place in China. And because of how media is, people just immediately believed that they were fake. And it wasn't until much later that even the government had come out and say, "Yeah, no, those things were real." And it's like, well, damage is already done. A real shame. Oh well. Do you believe it's a bit paranormal or just a rare species of gorilla or something? In terms of Sasquatch? Sasquatch reminds me more of a chimp. By the way, there's some horrible stories about chimps. They're mean. They're carnivores too. They toy with their food. Like, you've probably heard that people complain about cats toying with their food. "Oh, look, the cat's toying with its food. It's batting at this mouse and it's playing with it before it kills it." I want you to realize that chimps use psychological warfare on each other. Bigfoot strikes me as a chimp, not a gorilla. And if that is so, that's pretty terrifying. What is there's actually a legit species of this. Just a second. It's like a really a large dangerous one that it's not super common. What are the types of chimpanzees here? Yeah. I can't remember the name. But yeah, it looks like it's just a generic chimpanzee, but it's more like where they're living that becomes a huge problem. Some of them are, like I mentioned earlier, use psychological warfare against each other. You do not want to encounter one of those in the wild. A gorilla, you don't really want to encounter either, but your chances of survival are much higher than if it's a chimp. Bigfoot, it has some... It seems very much like it is in line with a type of chimpanzee than gorilla, just because of that temperament. But, yeah, there's some stories, though, that makes one think that there are several types of species. And if so, then it's not necessarily going to be just one or the other. There's probably one that's more baboon-like. And that's one that I'm not going to speak about tomorrow, but there's a very good reason to believe that one of the more dangerous versions is more akin to how a baboon acts. And if so, then that would be a completely different subspecies. There's another one that is kind of similar to an orangutan. So is it just one or is it multiple? It's really hard to tell. Greetings, Valexi. How are you doing? Hey, that's fine. How's life been? I'm from Europe, so for me, the whole Bigfoot stories are a bit like dragon stories. But I really enjoy the American cryptid lore and content as a far observer. My personal favorite is a Jersey Devil, but it's nothing to do with my nickname. So you technically have your own Bigfoot stories over in Europe. They're called the Abominable Snowman. Now, granted, I think that one's probably extinct. But there's some good reason to believe that you had a smaller version of it over in your on your continent. And there's been some others that definitely leaves one kind of curious. But one of the great things about Europe is that you've been living there for a very long time, and there's a lot of corners of Europe that are no longer mysterious. America's kind of the reverse. Our big creatures still exist. And there's some good reason to believe that there are a lot of creatures that are believed to be extinct that actually are still out here. You could go out into Alaska and travel for miles and miles and never see a single soul. And then you realize you're in territory somebody hasn't probably walked on for 1,000 years. And then you realize there's a very real chance there's a lot of mysteries out there that have not been fully understood yet. Of which, one of them is the Bigfoot stories. One of them that I heard about is relatively close to where I am living. And somebody was just driving down the road, and they did not believe that there was such a creature. And then it stepped out in front of the road, towering over their car. Yeah, that's going to shell shock you. But when I was growing up, my parents didn't want me really to think about it. They didn't want me to think that there was a monstrous creature in the woods. And so for me, I found out about it much later on in life, of which you'll understand that story tomorrow. There's, but I will say this, if ever you're traveling in America, do not go camping alone. There was a kind of a rule of the wilderness that got forgotten in the modern age. People think of the wilderness as like their backyard. Oh, we're going into the backyard. Yeah, it's great. We're going to pitch our tent. We're going to cook out there. And yeah, we might see an animal, but nothing's going to happen. Those people usually get mauled by a mountain lion or attacked by a bear. Or they end up getting dehydrated or they end up breaking a leg. The U.S. wilderness is not for the faint-hearted. I was talking to an Australian friend who he was mentioning about all the dangerous animals they have down around his continent. And he mentioned about how, oh yeah, we got the poisonous spiders everywhere. We got the terrible sharks out there, and we got our own version of kind of the Loch Ness monster. And but there's one place that I would never want to be. Australia's dangerous, but I am terrified of Alaska because all of our animals up here are gigantic by comparison. Biggest predator on the continent of Australia is fairly slow. The biggest predator in Alaska can chase you down in a moving vehicle and tear the door off like it's nothing. That is a polar bear. A creature that is very well known and very cute, honestly. Which is terrible. It's the murder bear that is cute beyond belief. I almost saw one the other day. I was actually up in the northern part of Alaska, and I missed out because I was too ill, and so I missed out on a chance to get photographs of 12 polar bears that moved into the area. 12! You're almost never going to get to see that again. I say almost because I'm probably going to get a chance to see at least some of them, but will it be the same thing? I doubt it, honestly. We have so many dashboard cams in Europe. If something like that were to happen, Bigfoot walking on road and stuff in Europe, it would become viral very, very soon. Yeah. Just like allergies are kind of killing me. You know, one thing to remember, people will say that, oh, there is no Bigfoot because we would have camera footage of it. And people saying that, oh, well, obviously there is no Sasquatch because of that. There's a very real possibility that we do have footage of it. but people have already denied that it is real. They've just written it off. They're like, nah, it's not real. It couldn't possibly be real. It's all fake. I think we do have evidence. But the question is, which one is accurate? We don't know. Although I tend to lean towards a couple of a couple bits of footage out there. I think the creature is very much a recluse. It avoids people, and it uses known strategies to stay invisible. One of the ways is that it probably comes out when it is a certain type of darkness. It also messes with people in order to get them freaked out. I suspect the creature moves around in dark, wet days. When there's a little bit of rain, I would get very wary, personally, from stories that I've heard. The one thing I want people to come away from the stream tomorrow, though, is realizing that there are mysteries out there. That's the big takeaway. Because I can't necessarily convince people one way or the other if the creature exists. That's up for other folks to decide for themselves. All I can do is try and help people understand that there are reasons to doubt the official stories that you hear from our government officials, from our park rangers, from our researchers. There is a lot of mysteries in this world, and we cannot know it all. I feel like a Bigfoot is more afraid of people than humans are afraid of it. We're going to cover some of those stories actually tomorrow. It should be very interesting because I think the creature's far more dangerous than a lot of us realize. But that's my own personal thoughts. But I do agree. I think it knows to stay as silent as possible. Greetings there, Bizmaster. How you doing? Okay, then, nearly all. Indeed. By the way, how are you doing, Bizmaster? How are your projects going? Where do you post your art, by the way, if you post it? So I do post it, not, it hasn't been super often as of late because I've been working on other stuff in the background. But let me take a brief moment to showcase some of the stuff that I've been working on for the last couple of months. First off, we have... Da-da-da! We got two things. One of them is Instagram. So I do post it on X as well. Instagram is where you're guaranteed to see only the artwork. X, I will post all sorts of stuff. Not bad. Calling me out for not posting with even trying. I'm gonna hop on it. I kind of been wondering why you haven't posted anything there, Bizmaster. How can I be able to like your stuff if there's not stuff to like? But anyway, Jersey, this is where stuff is. Like, here's one of the pieces from the intro that I did earlier this year. Another one right here. There we go. So this stuff was all done for this intro. Sorry, allergies are just really bad right now. It's probably the rain. I also got 3D animations that are coming out. Here's one of the renders from it. By the way, the renders are going much better now. Man, it was obnoxious to try and get those renders working. But I actually have rendered more in the last few days than I have done for like for the entire year. So I finally got it figured out. But also, by the way, this is the shirt that I prototyped. I'm wearing one of them right now. No, I was wearing one of those earlier. But also was testing around with some of the block printing stuff. Here's another render. But anyway, been posting on here for now a couple of years at this point, and had a lot of fun doing it. But now I've moved on to the next stage, and that is working on this. This is my website that I've been piecing together over the last 2 years. And this is where final stuff is going to start appearing. Been working on it for a long time. There's a lot of neat things under the hood for how this website functions, and of which you're going to see that as the content starts coming out. Right now, like for example, I have a short story that I've been writing. Right here, you have the ability to read it on here. Now, people can't do it. I can because I'm the admin of this. But you're going to see things like that. You're going to see more of the art and animation that's going to be coming out. I'll be posting it onto the project pages like this. And then there will be some bigger stuff that is going to be happening in the future. One of the neat things that you can also do, by the way, is over here, Silverado has the ability for us to be able to play sound effects and add some pretty neat stuff whenever we want it on the stream. Anyway, that's what this website is all about. It's trying to tinker and find solutions to things that I got frustrated with. It started as a replacement to my social media because I wanted to post more complete content, and then I wanted to use it for other tools as well, including Stream Radio, which you see over there. But anyway, that's what I've been tinkering on. What's the currency there? So that is called Pieces of Silver, and so that is how the stream elements for portion of it was kind of set up. The idea is that people would be able to use, like what you see over on the far left, you'll see an area that says stars. That right there is the redeem function. And so if you want to be able to play sound effects, you can do it through there. It's not actual currency, it's channel points. So, as a result, people have the ability to use it on that. They also have the ability very soon to be able to use it on redeeming stuff like stickers, which I just actually was talking with the print shop earlier today about getting that squared away. That's what it's all about. But anyway, some pretty neat stuff that's going to be coming along the way. Looks pro, much appreciated. Bucker. Precisely. But actually, the silver came about, the silver dollars came about from back in the roleplay days. I was playing the role of Milo as he was traveling across the Wild West and doing some Red Dead roleplay. It was a very good sort of experience, but people kept asking for what sort of opportunity there would be for getting in on silver, and we turned the channel points into silver. But then Twitch started having problems, and then I was like, well, fine, we got to find another way to do these channel points. So that's why you have a conversion area in Twitch to be able to turn your channel points into pieces of silver to be able to use for when you want to be able to use the sound effects and whatnot. It has helped me out tremendously because the tool is something I built. And so that way, when there's a problem, like what Twitch and Stream Elements has has had over the years, I actually have the ability to fix it. Whereas I couldn't do anything because I didn't make any money on it. So it's like, why would they want to fix the tool when I'm having problems because they're not getting any money from me. Anyway. You could say it's like, I'm somebody who gets obsessed over stupid projects that have absolutely no ability of actually kind of justifying the cost and effort. Like the t-shirts. The t-shirts, I've spent $500 learning how to do t-shirts. And I still don't have them. I tinker on projects and I pay the price. But that's part of because I enjoy the artwork so much that I don't care what kind of happens. I do it because it's fun and I get a chance to learn stuff along the way. I miss those Red Dead streams. They were a lot of fun, but all things do come to an end. I'm glad that when the end came about, it was when I was going to kill off the character. I was like, okay, this is it. It's not working anymore. Time to get rid of the character. And I was about ready to do it, and then the good Lord decided to make me sick. Very, very sick. And I didn't go through the stream, and then instead have an entire story now that's been created for Milo, even though it's not the roleplay anymore. It's now its own story, and I look forward to getting to share that one with you all soon. Actually, you can see it kind of being promoted over on the left side, along with some other things with that kind of cycling banner that is over there. So back when I was just getting started, I was told by a couple of people, I was complaining about some of the platforms not being very friendly for the projects that I wanted to try and do. I even tried to volunteer for a website in order to try and learn the tools of the trade and to also use their platform to test out story ideas. I had stories that I had written, and I was trying to post them, and they would not allow me to post it. And I said, how can I be able to, like, test out story material if I can't do this? And they said, well, we had to get rid of the feature because people were abusing it, and it was bugged. Oh. It was bugged. Okay, well, if I learned how to code this stuff, will you let me try and develop it? And they're like, no. Obviously not. This is our thing, and you can't contribute to that. And so I looked on to other platforms, and nothing was making sense. I was finally like, fine, you know what? I'll just go out and make my own. Darn it. And was it a wise opportunity? Debatable. But definitely has panned out to where I've learned a whole lot, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to experiment. Because now I have no worries about trying to build something that is going to be like larger and using that platform to try and do some really neat things. Let me put it this way. There's a guy that I was talking with who had purchased server space on a platform, and he was going to use this platform to build up his product line, and it looked really promising, but there was a problem. When he started posting stuff, it looked very tacky, and it started having all sorts of problems. He became a slave to the platform. He was unable to do anything. He was handicapped at every step of the way. He would try and do a banner, for example, and the banner had to be just so. And so if he wanted to try and be more creative, he was restricted. If you wanted the ability to have there to be something that was free, the platform was like, no, you have to do something that cost money. And there was no way to do something that was just for the sake of it. They all wanted to charge an arm and a leg. And so I looked at that stuff and was like, well, some of the things I just want to share because, like the short story, which you can now see right now, Pharaoh and the Smith, is a 20-minute short story. It's an experiment. It's a story I'm passionate about, but it's not one that I'm trying to I'm not trying to make it into a full-fledged publication, because I think the story is a bit too important to do that. And so I want to be able to share it. But every platform didn't really have the ability to have a book section. So I went on to try and build my own. By the way, that was a lot of fun to do. When I finally got the book stuff figured out, it was like, it has opened up so many possibilities of having online publication now. And you don't have to pay a fee for it. You just have to pay for it with hundreds of hours of making the project. Obviously, I'm saving money. I probably saved a total of $100, and I spent hundreds of hours building this thing. I could have gone out and mowed lawns for a week and could have paid for an entire lifetime of using the platform. But no, I had to program it from the ground up because I'm stupid that way. Well, maybe not stupid, but because I always like to take the hard road. The one that's the least traveled, the one that's the most cumbersome to have to try and go down. That happens a lot. A lot of times I'll have an idea and I'll start doing it, only to find out later that, dang, you know what? I probably could have done that a little bit better. Could have done it a little bit easier. Other people got it easy, and I chose the hard path. People are like, hey, the pass through the mountains is over there. No, I'm not doing that pass. I'm going to go down south and find the tallest mountain that I can. I'm going to climb up that and going to go all throughout the mountain range. Then I'm finally going to come out on the other side, and I'll have mapped the entire mountain range. You're just supposed to get through the mountains. You don't have to map the whole thing. Well, how can I know if that's the shortest route if I don't go out and climb every mountain and be able to find out for myself? That's my mentality. But when it works out pretty well. Stream Radio has been playing now for almost a year now. It's been great. The number of problems I've had with it is like 5. 5 problems that has shut down Stream Radio. I can't tell you how many problems I had with stream elements causing issues. I had so many issues, I just wanted to say,
I've just about had enough of you.
But anyway. Also have the ability to promote musicians this way. This is done by Boba Jet, if you know who that is. He is part of some online communities, and he purchased this music from him, and now I get a chance to share it with folks. How do you fill the base color layer? I always struggle with that when line art is messy. So if you notice right now, I'm doing a vector layer. So vector layers are, stand by just a second, let me double check something. Okay, yep, no, we're good to go. So let me pull this on over so you can see. Oh, come on. I knew I... Okay. Let's minimize this. Stretch it out. There's a button right here, right next to the new layer that says New Vector Layer. That's what I'm drawing on right now, a new vector layer. By doing this, this gives me the ability to fill in perfectly to all this line art. By the way, Clip Paint has one of the best vector art functions that I have seen. I've yet to see somebody actually pull it off better. Let me do a quick example of what this is like. So I'm going to create a new layer. Actually, let me minimize this again so you can actually see all the buttons. Double check that this is over here. Double check this is right here. Okay. I don't really get what the difference is. Oh, okay. Well, let me explain it to you, because this is actually very interesting. So I just created a new layer. Now, if I was to come in here, zoom in really close, and I was to lower this pencil. Actually, let's get a pixel pencil. Right, let's go. There we go. So this is, let's make this, here we go. Here's our pixel pencil. Draw box. Let's draw a smiley face. A very poorly done smiley face. So now you have the ability to paint this as you would if you were drawing on a piece of paper. Give him a stupid little tooth here. This right here is called raster painting. This is done basically as if you're drawing on just normal paper. But remember, the world of digital has to be minutely calculated. If you're to draw on a piece of paper and you were to increase the scale, the paper in your pencil would be still maybe not very refined, but it would still look the same if you blew it up. If you're to blow up an image like this, notice what that looks like. It looks just like what it did at the lower scale, right? Let's do some vector art now. So that was raster art. Let's do some vector. We're going to zoom in here and make sure, okay, right about that scale here. And we're going to use this. Let us make another. Just a second. Let's make another smiley face. This is a vector layer. Now we're not going to fill this in, but we're going to do the outline for it, okay? Now what happens if we increase the size of this vector art? Look what happened. it maintained the line art. The reason why this happens is because this right here is a series of curves. This over here is pixel data. Whereas this, if you were to actually see what it looks like in the code, you would see something akin to this. You would see, just a second. You would see a box, a control point. You see a control point down here, and you would see handles that come out. And the handles give you the ability to calculate what that curve is going to look like. This is what is being created. A series of points with control points that allow you to create one curve. That's the difference of vector. Vector is great for doing large illustrations. Now, if you draw something like this, pixel art, and put it up on a movie screen, it looks terrible. But if you do use vector, it becomes a lot more easy on the eyes. A lot less cleanup time, too. So now, one of the neat things you can do with vector is now, because it's a vector line, let's try and fill it in. So over here we have our raster art. Okay, let's go in and let's see what happens if we're trying to fill it. Let's add some extra details to him first before we do this. So we're going to go back to our pixel, and because he's blown up, we're just going to pretend like this is not a big problem. We're going to give him some cool hair, whatnot. Okay? We want to give him some hair. Looks like a tomato now. Well, now I want to come in and get rid of that line. Well, I can come in and I can use the brush to be able to start to clean it up, right? This is raster. You have to paint it. And you're like, oh, darn, I got to fix this area. Let's come back in and start painting. Let's add some hair to this guy over here. Make sure this is the right layer. Okay, yep. Let's add some interesting looking hair, okay? Same sort of style. But now if I want to come in and erase, I just had to do that once. Because it's figuring out the math between these 2 points. So should everything be done with vector? Not entirely. Here's where it becomes a challenge. Let me hide all the stuff in the background because that's kind of being distracting here. Okay. So now we have our 2 separate characters that have been created with 2 different art styles here. 2 different methods. Now, what if I want to be able to maybe add in some extra details? So let's say that we're going to make this guy with some yellowish hair. Got a little line that goes out there to show like the difference of where the highlights are going to be. And then we say, okay, we're going to fill in the lower part. Uh-oh. That's a problem. Darn it, I don't want to have to go through there and like, okay, fine, we're going to go in and we're going to correct it. Oh, darn it, I just overshot. I got to color that back in. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, oh, come on. I'm exaggerating, by the way, if you couldn't tell. I'm intentionally trying to make this troublesome. Okay, so now I want to color the top. Okay, there we go. Oh, look at that. We got a problem right there. Okay, come in and clean that up. Look, we have hair on top of our character. On top of our smiley face. So what does raster art have that vector art doesn't? Well, let's come over here and color this, shall we? Okay, we have our vector art. Let's try and fill this. Oh, we can't fill it. Because vector art can't make fill shapes very well. If you want to do fill art with vector, you have to do individual stroke lines for everything, and it becomes a nightmare. Illustrator can do this. It doesn't look good. So what you have to do is merge both techniques. That's what I'm doing for the Star Wars thing. So instead, you're creating another layer. And so let's just color both of these layers so they stand out, okay? We'll do blue for the vector strategy, and we'll do red for the raster version. Okay, so this one is also a raster. This is the one that's going to be filled. What we can do is we can reference other layers. So I want to come in and let's do the same sort of coloration that this guy has, but we're going to do a slight difference here. We're going to add in a small line for the hair. Okay. Let's fill using the raster layer. I'm going to grab that color, fill it. Oh, that's nice. Grab that color, fill it. Ooh, very nice. Fill that, and let's go with that. Oh, well, we got a problem. Well, we can use the close gap to be able to solve that. Problem solved. There's a few problems right there. Fill it in. But for the most part, this is a very easy process. But notice the one on the left actually kind of feels more natural, you could say, to artwork. So what you can do here is you can be able to lock the layer, and you can start to add in some of the color effects that you would get if you just had raster. So let's add in a little bit of shadowing, shall we? You can be able You can be able to now select this, and just saying, my bad, I'm grabbing the wrong tools here. You can be able to do coloring effects on your raster layer, but it's completely different than your vector layer. They have to go together. You want to add some color effects to your line? Create a clipping mask. And let's add some coloring effects. That's what you can do with this. So hopefully that makes sense. So copy, paste changes into a normal layer and fill it. Kind of. So you're using these two ones separately. So the vector and the raster. The raster is just being filled using the reference material of everything else. Sounds complicated. It is to begin with. Once you figure it out, though, it becomes a lot easier. Tremendously easier. When it comes to coloring, it is very difficult. Let me pull up a piece of artwork that I did the other day using this technique. Actually, let me pull up two examples. Let me see here. What pieces of artwork should I show? So there's a time and place for both of them, okay? Let me show you a piece of artwork that I tried doing a couple years ago. So this was done using my Wacom tablet. This is the very first time that I did artwork with it. And so it has only brush strokes. It has no vector artwork in there. This is only painting. It feels more natural this way. You have to work with a very high scale image though. This is actually very difficult to try and work on, even though it's a fairly simple drawing, because it takes the computer so much time to calculate it. Now let me show you an example of this vector artwork. Here's another piece that I did. Come on. There we go. Oh well, fine. We'll just leave it there. This is a combination of vector and painted with raster. So because of that allows for this image to be scaled up to a very high level, and it works out pretty well. Now let me show you the final one here. This one is an example of kind of using both techniques together. Where did I put that? Just a second. I'm trying to debate which one to show right here. Oh, I know which one to show. Come in here, go to art. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, this will be a good one to show. Okay, so there was art commission that was done. Using the pieces of silver that I mentioned about earlier, this is what we used to do with it. Someone made a request to have their pets drawn like they were pirates. And so this was using the silver redeem that you see over on the side of the screen. This right here combined both techniques. There was vector, but then it was done with raster painting over top of it. This allowed for the fine detail to be vector, but for the painting itself to still be raster. It just makes it look a lot sharper, so you can be able to have high detail and to be able to zoom in without causing the computer to kind of freeze up. And you'll notice it's not super high detail. This was obviously a very simple commission, so you can see how very simple a lot of the features are. But when they're all zoomed out, it looks pretty high quality by comparison. This is an example of both techniques being used. And honestly, it has some great potential. Here's another one that I did for a guy. This was for BR Jason, who was a regular on the stream for quite a while. He made this request. He wanted to have his favorite vehicle and character combo at an aquarium. I don't know why. What possessed him to do this? But this was his redeem that he wanted to do. And so we drew this for him, and that was using both techniques once again. But anyway, that hopefully gives you some idea as to why both of them are actually important. One is not better than the other. They both have a purpose in the world of art. Kind of like how 2D and 3D both serve very different purposes. They're both great pieces of artwork, and neither one of them is necessarily better. It's just which one are you going to choose for the project. And honestly, it comes down to style. For this one, for this project, it is necessary that I do vector with painting because the characters are going to be zooming in and out. And this allows me to be able to very quickly start to do line art and to then start to color. Any manga or anime is going to be done with vector and raster. This stuff was figured out early on in the world of animation. Walt Disney was pioneering it. The Walt Disney Company was pioneering it with their early computers. Now, they couldn't quite figure out the vector art early on, but eventually they would start utilizing it. And one of those would be things like The Lion King or Hunchback of Notre Dame, which really started to see some of these tools coming about. And then you get up until the more modern day where they really refined it all the more. Now, I have to say, raster still feels more natural. I like raster line artwork a lot better, but the benefit of clip paint is that its line art is starting to feel natural, and there's some neat effects you can do with this. If you want to have like a textured brush, let's bring it black. Okay, you want to have a textured brush? This was not possible back in the day. This is a vector line. That too. Vector lines. That was impossible back when I was first getting started. So yeah, there really is no need to avoid raster art these days. Now, to avoid vector or raster, it's all about choice at this point. We're almost at the tail end of the stream for today. We'll be back tomorrow after the Dadman stream, but I need to start to call it an evening. This artwork has taken me a long time to try and finalize because I want it to be, I wanted this to be kind of like getting myself back up to speed for some of the artwork. So I'm going to basically be submitting this piece for the first intro, and then next week I'll be submitting another intro. Come by for the Bigfoot stream for sure. Well, that'd be much appreciated. It will be an interesting story. The stream is going to be taking place, which, by the way, I probably should bring this up here. Where is it? I've done this conversation a couple of times at this point. For the people who have been regulars of this channel, you've heard this many times over. But a lot of people have not heard this, and some folks found out about the story and they wanted to have it told to their group of people. The stream is right here. So, up. Come on. Wrong button here. I need to probably get a new mouse. My mouse has been acting up. Okay, so this is the stream. Maybe it's not the mouse. Maybe it's the program. There we go. Okay, this is a stream right here. I'll be linking this into the chats here. Grab this and paste. So this stream is taking place at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In other words, 14 hours from now. Why is that not like show? Oh, yeah, that's it. 14 hours from now. If you have any doubt that the creature is real or not, hopefully by the end of this stream, you will believe that this creature is real. 2 a.m. Well, yeah, no worries. I realize that it is definitely going to be a challenge for some folks. But anyway, this is where it's going to be. I've done this conversation, like I said beforehand, but this time it's going to come with illustrations. I made these illustrations for a previous stream, And we're going to be using those along with some other imagery to help people fully understand. But yeah, should be a lot of fun, a very interesting one. I don't sleep much anyway. Hey, that makes sense. Like right now, it is actually almost 2 a.m. my time, and so I need to start wrapping up. Now, I usually, back when I was early days of streaming, I would stay up until about 5 in the morning. I did so probably not for the best reasons, but it panned out decently early on. But it also meant that we got all the night owls. I found out that I could not compete with the daytime streams here in the US. If I tried to stream in the middle of the day, no one would show up. And so I was like, well, you know, I don't really have the time for it in the middle of the day. Might as well just change to the evening stream. So been an evening streamer ever since. It also allows me to just kind of ramble, and you know, people are not desperate for the hype during the middle of the night, and so some people come around, they'll just listen, they'll fall asleep. It's kind of funny when there would be like streams and you hear like someone who was on the chat suddenly doze off and start sleeping. I was like, yep, that's what we got around here. We're the late night team. That is going to start changing, though. We are actually going to have our first daytime stream in a long time. That's going to be coming up not this weekend, next weekend. And I'll be promoting that here. I'll probably put out the post later on today. So for those that are interested in those daytime streams, we are going to have that daytime stream what looks like next weekend. I thought about doing it as for right now, but kind of turned away from that when I kind of saw the other tasks that needed to be done. But anyway, we're going to bring this to an end for tonight. Save this, and let us see if there's anybody currently live that we can go and raid. A lot of the platforms have become a difficult thing to try and raid with. But it looks like there's somebody we can go over and visit who just gave us some of his time. It looks like Bizmaster is currently live doing some pixel art. We are going to go over and visit him. He's a good fella, does great artwork, and we're going to go show him some support. For the people on both the YouTube and Rumble side, it'd be much appreciated if you would like or dislike the stream. I will take either. Just tell me that you are flesh and blood and not the terrible, cursed AI. That will make me happy. Anyway, gonna set this raid here. Biz. Okay, let's see. Oh, much appreciated there. I still have a sound alert for that, but it's not coming through for other folks, so it just rang in my ears. I need to get that thing kind of squared away for the Silverado stuff, so it actually works over there. Okay, starting the raid. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. Be civil to one another, and we will see you next time, whenever that is. Until next time, folks. Make sure that you don't go out in the woods alone. Always carry a firearm. And make sure to share the light with you wherever you go. Until then, folks, have a very pleasant evening. And to you on the Rumble side, we're not going to be raiding because there's not any art streams at this time of day. And so we will just close out right here, right now.